I'm mostly going to assume that everyone is pretty much convinced that capitalism is a bad thing and it's replacing. So the question then becomes, what do we want to put in its place? Okay, it's not in terms of exact details, but in terms of like the basic institutional outlines that we want to sort of set up. So many have tried to do this, anarchists and left Marxists especially. ParEcon is based on this work. And like I said, the goal isn't to have like a set utopia or something where everything's figured out and we know what everyone's going to do every single day or something. It's just to have like something a little bit concrete to work towards and debate and evaluate with other people. So if we're trying to target as a capitalism bad thing and we need to replace it, it's good to say, like, okay, so here's this other basic way of organizing our economy, and this would be a hell of a lot better. Okay, so given this, my focus will be quite a short explanation of just the basics of the participatory economic system. And there are 4 key components. The first is workers and consumers' councils, see them there. So ParEcon is an economy run by and for workers and consumers. So every adult person is a member of a workers' council and a consumers' council. Now, workers' councils govern individual workplaces. They consist of, say, 25 to 100 people, and they federate upwards along industrial lines. So, an individual, say, workplace onto the general industry, and so on and so forth, until you reach the national level. And together, like the workers' council, are responsible for day-to-day managing of production, as well as the implementation of participatory plans. Okay, so similarly, everyone in the ParEcon is a member of a nested consumers' council, and these go by neighborhoods. So we start, and these federate upwards as well. So they go by, again, they're 25 to 100 people at the basic level, and they federate by neighborhood up to precinct, county, and national level, and so forth. Now, consumers' councils, they negotiate where it's necessary, and they finalize participatory plans with workers' councils, and they provide relevant public goods and services within their local jurisdiction. For example, like on the national level, you have a public health service and stuff on the national level, whereas the local park, like down on the county level, for example. Now, they also fulfill what Joe's going to be talking about later anyway, they also fulfill many of the roles associated with the polity, i.e. like passing laws and regulations, stuff like that. So in order to function at all, the ParEcon needs a workable method of planning. That's participatory planning. If you want to ensure that everyone has an effective and participatory control over the economy and individual workplaces, it's important that the most desirable and empowering tasks are distributed in such a way that ensures everyone in a given workplace ends up with an adequate set of skills and the level of understanding necessary for them to participate meaningfully. So we call this kind of distribution of tasks a balanced job complex. Okay? So finally, we need a criterion which decides who gets how much of what in an economy. Okay? And this is called our remunerative criteria, and we believe should be effort sacrifice. And I'll briefly explain the three later things. Okay. So participatory planning. Okay, so the participants in participatory planning are individuals, workers and consumers councils, and what we call iteration facilitation boards. Okay? Now the IFPs, they set what we call indicative prices, which translates your work rating into your rights to certain individual commodities. So similar to the way money is used now, like you get a certain amount of money and you get to buy things with it. A person's work rating is decided by our remunerative criteria, which I'll get onto later, but basically it's effort and sacrifice, and it's modified by individual criteria. So for example, you're working, say you're having like, I don't know, you're a car mechanic or something, and you start getting shoulder pains. Like what you do in the modern economy, you would say work 50%, you get 50% sick or something, and 50% you work 50%, get your regular wages for that. Whereas in participatory economy, with change your work rating accordingly, so you get more for the time you work. So if you work less, you get the same amount of money because it costs you so much. Well, in terms of effort and sacrifice, because you're paying your shoulder, for example. So actual participatory planning follows the procedure roughly as follows. Okay, IFP suggests indicative prices for the goods and services, as well as their socially relevant cost of production. So these include labor, how much and how tough the work is, their machinery, the cost of scarce natural resources, and also the cost of cleanup and pollution. And these indicative prices are based on those settled on last year's plan and then modified by relevant changes we've seen since then. So things like long-term investment goals or population change. So once this is done, Workers and Consumers Councils then present suggestions for the following year's production and consumption. And these are based, as with the IFB plans, they're based on the collected data from last year's plan and modified by the new preferences of the people that are suggesting how much they work and if they want. Those who wish to keep theirs private can either join an anonymous Consumers Council or they can submit individual anonymous proposals, should there be things that they don't want the neighbours to see or not. So in light of these new series of proposals, the IFBs revise their indicative prices to take into account these updated preferences. And note that these are for convenience only, so the IFBs don't decide anything about any actual plans. The indicative prices are just there to help the consumers and workers' councils have something to go by, so smooth the process. Consumers and workers' councils then submit revised proposals and so on until agreement is reached and the plan settled on. So no one will suggest like huge unrealistic plans because no one else is going to agree to them. So generally speaking, we hope like 2 or 3 rounds should be all that's enough to settle like the basic, basic plan. So in accordance with the plan they've agreed to, individual workplaces then receive a limited quantity of consumption rights based on their collective work ratings, i.e. how much work is being done in the workplace and how bad it is. And these are then distributed to individuals depending on their specific bundle of tasks they do. So, say, I don't know, a factory agrees to like produce like 12 cars or something, and people have agreed already set like they're all working the same amount of the exact same task or whatnot, but they decide to switch in between, like, you take my shift for 1 day because I want the time off something. You don't have to, go all and change the whole plan or something for that. The workplace will already have had the rights and you'll just send them to the individual who's doing the correct kind of work. Okay. Probably didn't explain that too long. Sorry. So as the year goes, individuals revise their plans insofar as they desire and the adjustment remains at a feasible level. So Michael Albert reckons that you can alter about 1/3 of your whole plan, and the system will sort of still work. And this is actually huge. Like if a business plans this badly, they go bankrupt. So it should be feasible. So notice that the plan as stands involves like literally no meetings, just gathering and submitting of production and consumption requests and the operation of the IFBs. Let's also say that there won't be any meetings. For one, they're needed for day-to-day management of the workplace and for provision of public goods and services. It can also be used for other things like negotiating plans. But instead of, say there's a particular contentious issue, instead of submitting like 10, 20 plans because they just can't agree on some issue, they can negotiate between, say, you have a first proposal and you have, say, a major dispute about, I don't know, what the work rating should be for a certain kind of work. Say because some technology has changed that makes making cars a lot easier than it used to be. So there's a major debate there about what the work rating is supposed to be set at. What they can do is, instead of sending in proposals again and again and again, and then finally agreeing, what they can do is they have one proposal, they'll meet and they'll discuss it, and they'll settle on some, adequate agreement or something, and then they'll send in a second proposal and that'll be settled. So that'll make things a bit easier. Okay, then we get on to balanced job complexes. So a balanced job complex doesn't necessarily mean that everyone does a bit of everything. Okay, it's just a way of distributing tasks within a workplace that enables people to participate meaningfully in the decision making of that workplace, as well as flourish as human beings, hopefully. So to do this work, it'll vary a lot from workplace to workplace, depending on what needs to be done in particular workplaces. But the essential dynamics are the same. So one, ensure that everyone does both some of the more challenging and rewarding labor, as well as the dull and crappy labor, to strengthen and empower all individuals, rather than the few at the expense of all others. Two, ensure that tasks involving critical knowledge of the functioning of the business are rotated among everyone, so that everyone has crucial oversight